Hello, I'm Joseph Chan.
And I'm Mark Lemon. Joseph Chan is the Global Head of Consumer Insights and Marketing Effectiveness for Prestige Champagne at Martell, GH and Perrier-Jouet divisions of Pernod Ricard, where he leads global consumer and brand insight strategies, primarily focusing on luxury and prestige acceleration.
And Mark is an Associate Director at Science Salad, a cultural insight agency specializing in cultural foresight, semiotics, and language analysis. After receiving his master's degree in semiotics from University of Tartu in Estonia, Mark has been working as cultural insight expert for the past 8 years, and now he heads up Science Salad's language analysis offering.
So Pernod Ricard and Science Salad have partnered together on a number of projects, helping to resolve various strategic challenges, including an investigation of the language of flavor descriptors for whiskey, which won the 2020 Aura Insight Impact Award. Now, based on these past successes and our ongoing relationship, we thought it would be interesting to explore how and why cultural insight and semiotics have been such a crucial tool for Pernod Ricard and a vital part in GH ongoing brand vision and strategic brand development going forward. Our recent analysis of the changing cultural expressions of the value of progress in the US, France, Australia, and Japan for GH for example, employed a number of interesting complementary inputs that are worth reflecting on. So, Joseph, why do you think that Pernod Ricard's global champagne consumer insights team feels cultural insight and semiotics is a beneficial research approach, both as a standalone methodology and as a complementary partner to qual and quant methods?
In my role as Global Head of Consumer Insight for our prestige champagne brands, we are always out there looking for new ways to innovate and also explore impactful methodologies. And I think semiotics has really helped to provide that. It's a really useful insight into how brands, products, and consumer communicate themselves. And more importantly, it's also great for unpacking deeply embedded cultural differences to ensure our brand strategy remain globally consistent, but also locally relevant.
So at the surface level, cultural change can often be rapid and bewildering, especially when considering diverse global markets. But unpacking micro-level changes and laddering up from these to understand their deep-rooted underlying meanings can help brands develop durable consumer targeting and communication strategies built on lasting cultural needs. This ensures that brands can sympathetically yet durably communicate in alignment with shifting cultural needs. So let's talk about the recent progress project for GH to illustrate these principles.
GH our super premium champagne maison, is approaching its 200th anniversary in 2027. So in an effort to build towards our celebration of this, we really wanted to push the boundary and have a future-facing understanding of the brand's core values of progress, as well as to understand how these values interact with our long-held brand identity as an explorer brand. And in particular, we also wanted to identify opportunities to embed progress in our brand social responsibility strategies to really give our brands something even more enduring and meaningful in the years to come. And the data from our Pernod Ricard Global S&R Barometer show that there are increasing needs for global brands to make conscious commitment to sustainability and also social responsibility. But understanding how to do this in a GH relevant way, and also that would embed our core value of progress, was the key questions for this workstream.
So in order to meet the nuanced cultural needs of this project, we proposed a multi-stage approach involving several different data sources, including our own desk-based cultural detective research, consultation with expert local market partners to give us the informed insider perspective on local cultural changes, and the use of the social media insights platform Pulsar, as well as the Pernod Ricard Centre for Excellence's global S&R barometer, to gather a wealth of material from social listening and online discussion. For the social listening data, we adopted a combined approach, analysing the tracked data gathered from Pernod Ricard's in-house sustainability and responsibility barometer, gave us a great understanding of the key areas of discussion. This provided us with some really clear search terms that could then be fed into our own Pulsar AI platform in order to gather rich visual and language material from social media that could be used to support our analysis. Leveraging the findings from each platform in this way allowed us to identify common threads of meaning and quickly isolate large and diverse set of visual and linguistic material that was indicative of changes in the cultural understanding of progress. So with the Pulsar AI, we were able to gather over 100,000 posts with over 250 million global impressions. The material gathered included posts relating to politics, sustainability, wellness, the arts, and social justice, as well as many, many other topics. It was sourced from online conversation and visual content from across social media, including platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. Taking this vast body of material, the Pulsar AI allows us to quickly understand connections between content and identify the most influential conversations, as well as understand the differences in conversation between markets. You can see some examples of the posts surfaced by the platform on this chart. Now, using the Pulsar AI to analyze social listening data at scale and combining this with the nuanced perspectives from local market partners gave us a very thorough and 360-degree view of the changing narratives of progress in the US, France, Australia, and Japan.
And our iconic champagne brand like GH Mumm, we do need unified and culturally impactful strategic direction while still allowing for nuances execution within specific market in order to meet their different cultural needs. So understanding culture, both at global scale and also at local level, as well as the links between these is absolutely important.
So in terms of understanding the opportunities for strategic direction, we were able to identify a key cultural shift in the master narrative of progress that has relevance across markets and could therefore provide a stable, meaningful ground for GH Mumm's BSR initiatives going forward. Now, specifically, we identified that progress is moving from an idealistic and top-down narrative where institutional initiatives are focused on often quite distant solutions and goals, such as aims for 2030 and beyond, and quite vague references to dreams or the future, all serve to code responsibility for progress as something held by sources of cultural authority, such as governments, celebrities and influencers, or leading brands. Now, this narrative is increasingly being replaced by an understanding of progress as a space of more pragmatic social action, where bottom-up actions guided through peer-to-peer social media-powered movements and a focus on very tangible real-world benefits are coding progress as more pragmatic and people-centered. This shift has significant implications for the champagne category, but also chimes with the brand purpose of GH Mumm.
Absolutely, Mark. And the cultural semiotics methodology here just felt so relevant. It gave us a great understanding of where things are, as well as the direction that things are moving in. And through this insight, we could really see where GH Mumm's brand purpose could fit in this changing narrative. Just to give you an example, one of our global S&R pillars is the idea of validating people. So making sure that the brand takes time to step aside and offer a platform to show and celebrate the work of others is really a natural extension of this. And that will also fit so well with the changing cultural narrative. But the other question is, beyond this strategic narrative, we also want to understand the specific visual and language cues that we could employ to communicate this idea, and where there might be differences between our four key global markets of the US, France, Australia, and Japan.
So looking within this overarching narrative and breaking down some more micro level codes that sit within it, we identified several areas of cultural nuance. For instance, dominantly, we can see how progress is framed as quite a rigid direction, communicated through language like ahead and forward, or imagery such as arrows, suggesting a sense of continual forward movement. This is frequently accompanied by the use of quite prestigious family names and references to heritage, communicating a sense of immovable cultural authority, fixated on a singular unidirectional goal. Increasingly, however, references to progress communicate an alternative ideal of much more fluid reassessment. It's a space of continual reevaluation, where there's an embrace of circular thinking, within which references to practices like unlearning, to taking time to pause for reflection, and much more circular imagery of feedback processes reflect the growing acceptance of progress as taking different routes and actively revisiting elements of the past as a means to that better future. There is a clear link here to one of the spaces explored by Pernod Ricard's Global S&R Barometer, which analyzes the discussion around circular making. This conversation is one that has been identified as having increased in frequency by over 3% over the last year, illustrating the growing cultural influence of the values of fluid reassessment. Now, what is additionally interesting here is that while the iconography, the arrows and stepping forward of rigid direction is no doubt still very much present in Japan, Japanese culture as a whole is frequently much more comfortable and familiar with these kind of circular and fluid narratives of progress that embrace reassessment and unlearning. This is reflected, to give one example, in processes like Kaizen, the Japanese concept based around continuous reflection and improvement, which is often represented as a kind of circular feedback process.
And understanding nuances like this does allow us to subtly tailor our brand communication strategy for this culturally unique market, and also can help us with identifying those part of market in which we can really push with more confidence into the emerging narrative, because the cultural conditions are already well aligned with these concepts.
For this shift to be a useful insight, particularly to the GH brand, it's of course important to check its relevance to the champagne category and to identify any indications of its growing influence in the space. Now, as a very traditional category in many ways, when analysing champagne, we weren't surprised to see that there was a large amount of material that communicated the more dominant sense of the kind of top-down rigidity of progress. This is exemplified by the number of prestigious family names present in the space, the references to the long-held heritage of a number of the key maisons, and the more directional narratives of progress reflected in language such as "the future belongs to those who step forward" that we can see in the Moet and Chandon's social media posts shown on the left-hand side of this slide. Now, what was more interesting was the instances, which albeit slightly fewer and more scattered, where we did start to see brands hinting at the more emergent and fluid narrative, such as this Taittinger Instagram post on the right that alludes to the tortoise and the hare and evokes a notion of slow progress through the phrase, nothing is gained by running, or Champagne Telmont's reflection on and questioning of established category practices, stating no more transparent bottles, no more packaging or gift boxes. In both cases, the emergent narrative is not being communicated consistently by the brands in question, and there are definitely elements of their expression of these values that leave something to be desired in regards to more fully embracing the emergent narrative. However, they do illustrate the potential applicability of the emergent codes of fluid reassessment to the champagne category. There is appetite for this new narrative, albeit there is also a lot of room for GHMUM to push this on further and take ownership of this movement.
And understanding both the maturity of the category and also the relevance of the emerging progress narratives was really important here. It reassures us that we can communicate these values while still staying closely connected with the core brand purpose. And that with consistent, thoughtful work, I strongly believe there's a clear opportunity for GHMUM to communicate something really distinctive in this space. However, in order to ensure maximum brand relevance, and that any evolutions in the future will still carry the distinctive GHMUM DNA, we also wanted to filter these cultural changes through the lens of our core identity of the explorer, in order to maintain the unique GHMUM personality here.
So in order to deliver this, it was necessary for us to analyze some of the key attributes and associations of the explorer across the markets in question and explore their relevance to progress and champagne. So starting with some basic core qualities and distilling the explorer down to its essential ingredients, we know that explorers are defined by their desire to find out more about themselves through discovering new places, new things, new experiences, and they maintain a very strong sense of their independence to ultimately achieve fulfillment in their life on their own terms. So some of the core explorer values are the desire for freedom, the desire for a sense of authenticity, the enjoyment of novelty, the celebration of autonomy, and a consistent drive and ambition. But there is some cultural baggage here that represents potentially outdated ideas or notions that might be a poor fit for a super premium champagne maison. For example, the explorer archetype is associated with a number of the stereotypes of masculinity. And these can also be associated with some quite dominant codes of progress, such as a sense of a kind of never back down, rugged individualism. In many expressions, this grizzled assertiveness is not a good fit for the luxury and elegance of the champagne category. So in order to communicate an identity as an explorer while aligning with emergent values of progress and the expectations of the champagne category, GHMUM needs to reimagine some of these stereotypes and infuse the explorer with codes that align with the emergent progress narrative in order to communicate this explorer identity in a compelling and champagne relevant way. As a dominant progress code, rugged individualism can therefore be updated and made relevant to the champagne category by moving beyond the sense of ruggedness to look at individualistic explorers from more elevated categories, such as in fashion or tech and food, individuals who are known for their game-changing approach to their categories, as well as their sense of style and care. In this sense, someone like a Heston Blumenthal or a Roger Federer can be seen as an explorer who fundamentally changed their industry or their sport respectively.
And while GHMUM brand has a strong historical connection to the 1904 French Antarctic expedition led by our famous French explorer Jean-Baptiste Charcot, and frequently employs the explorer imageries in reference to this, our brand have already started to bring exploration to life with a little bit more sophisticated sense of individualism. One of the good examples of this is our partnership with an avant-garde chef, Susumu Shimizu, who creatively explore and experiments new combinations of Japanese and French cuisine.
In addition to the individualism, the emergent progress code of open-minded reassessment also fits very well with the explorer due to its sense of restlessness and constant striving for improvement and leaving no stone unturned. In a super premium space, this is evidenced by brands who are revisiting and changing their thinking on certain topics, such as their approach to sustainability, their production processes, their supply chains, and their packaging. These brands communicate the explorer archetype through their fearless free thinking. So the Macallan's use of wet wood taken from casks at the end of their lifespan and using that wood to create unique gift box packaging is an interesting example of this, as is Pernod Ricard's own paper bottle innovation for the Absolute brand. Returning to GH Mumm, we can see how this kind of creative circular thinking is showing up in language that the brand uses to talk about itself on their website, such as Mumm has continued to fine-tune its expertise, suggesting this sense of restless and continual reassessment. There are also examples of material that previously would have been hidden, kind of behind the scenes imagery that is starting to become more present on GH Mumm's social media and is being further employed to show evidence of this constant refinement mindset. The brand's sustainable gift box solutions as well also display this increasing commitment to circularity. Crucially, however, the biggest impact of this work are still to come. This piece of work is feeding directly into ongoing strategic work concerning sustainability for the GH Mumm brand, within which the emergent narrative of progress for the explorer identity will be fully brought to life. We are incredibly excited to see both the current developments around the brand that are already employing these emergent codes, as well as the continuing impact of this work going forward.
I just wanted to wrap up by saying that cultural and semiotic insight has made a positive difference both strategically and creatively to many of our ongoing challenges, and also has really helped us at GH Mumm understand how to become more future ready and, more importantly, benefits from the evolving cultural context. A key asset for our brand is our heritage. It is who we are, and we have a strong iconic identity. But at times, our heritage can also hold us back as well. The insight from this piece of semiotic and cultural analysis are encouraging us to become even more bold, embrace changes as we refine our purpose and identity ahead of our 200th anniversary. I must admit the work is not done yet, and there are big decisions ahead, but this becomes easier by having such a thorough and nuanced research and a semiotic partner who really understand luxury, the prestige champagne category, and also our brand's inside out. With strategic partnership like this, we are very confident that GH Mumm is a brand that will be fit to stand for another 200 years to come.
We've got a question here from Louise who says, were your archetypes developed solely on semiotics and cultural insight, or were other research methods used, such as customer interviews?
The short answer is they were developed solely through use of a fairly traditional semiotic methodology. But one of the things I would encourage us all as semioticians to be is to be confident about what we can do and what we can answer with semiotics. We've seen a number of great examples today of projects that have taken a collaborative approach. I really liked Nick's idea earlier about semiotics as a kind of connective tissue between different research methodologies. But what I think is also true is that for certain types of question, particularly those pertaining to culture, pertaining to meaning, as exemplified by an idea like these embedded cultural archetypes, semiotics is often the best way to answer that question by analyzing and breaking down the material of culture at large, whether that's from the arts, whether that's from the news media, whether that's from brands, packaging, communications, politics. And so all of this analysis work in collaboration with our local market expert partners was conducted through this cultural analysis lens. So there was no direct kind of consumer input into this, but we were analyzing the material of culture that informs where consumers get their ideas from, where they form their notions. And for us, and me personally, I believe that leads to a more enduring understanding of these values, these ideas in culture. But yes, thank you for the question.
Joseph, did you want to comment on the archetypes at all? Because
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I think in order to make sure the semiotic analysis is as actionable as possible in terms of brand planning and brand communication, one of the key advice is to build really strong linkage with our brand heritage, which is what the values we stand for from the archetype perspective. So this will help us to further amplify what our brand values are in sync with the local understanding, interpretation of what exactly is resonating with the consumers. So I think Mark made a really good point. Semiotics is a fantastic analysis. Help us not only to understand what our brand purpose mean, but also help us understand the emerging codes that we can tap into and in order so that we can move our brand towards more kind of future-facing direction. It's a really good education from the science of the team because I've never done this before, but this is super powerful. One thing I just wanted to say is there are two reasons we start this project. First one is consumer centricity, and the second one is brand purpose. And consumer centricity is absolutely important at Pernod Ricard, but how we can do this in a more kind of brand relevant way. So we need to anchor our brands in culture. So understanding the cultural codes and cues, and in order to help our brands to tell a timeless brand story by using timely language in a culturally relevant way, which is super important. And this is what we have achieved here. On the second point about the brand purpose is what JH1 really stands for is about progress. But what progress actually mean to consumers, and any difference between the Japanese and the American. So this is something that which is the big unknown in my Bible. And progress, as you can imagine, is a very high level notion as well. It's really, really difficult to unpack, especially for a category like champagne and luxury. So in this exercise, semiotic analysis really help us to unpack the notion of context, how it's evolving through the lens of champagne and luxury, and also how we can resonate with the global consumers. And in terms of actionability, which is fantastic because there are so many benefits as a result of this analysis. We apply this to further refine our brand architecture, to revamp our whole consumer targeting model, and also we use this in analysis to build a platform for our BSR strategy for JH1 going forward.